So, hey everyone. So are all doors made equal? This is what we're gonna speak about today. And a quick warning before, usually when we speak about mobile monetization, specifically with ads, that this is the subject that I'm gonna touch today, we're speaking about how to optimize it better, which ad formats to use, where to place them, whether or not to use in-app purchases and ads combined. And this talk is a bit different. It's about an unspoken subject, if you will, and it's about when ads are actually causing us a loss of revenue instead of generating it. So we're gonna touch on this subject. So yeah, my name is Ayala, Rudoy, and I'm the Strategic Customer Director at SafeDK. What we do is we offer an ad intelligence solution that gives complete visibility to the publishers, to the game developers, and identify and alerts about issues with ads that cause loss of revenue. So with mobile monetization, there's a few ways to do it. There's the freemium model, the in-app purchases, and the ads. And all are great models if you take them alone or if you combine them. It depends on the app. But when you do freemium and in-app purchases, you have full control over what the user is going through. Whereas where you put ads, basically you're giving up control. The product team and the engagement and everything, like the stickiness that you mentioned, are all super important parts, and you're making a lot of effort making sure the game is fun and engaging and that users have a great experience. But then like 10% or 20% of the time, they're seeing ads. And you, as a game developer, have no control over what your users are actually seeing. Usually it's a big mystery, and you have no idea whether or not they have good experience with the content they see in those ads or not. So when we think about ads and how they impact your users, we should keep in mind that there's a bunch of different users. So if it's a 40-year-old woman, which is more sensitive to specific content, or the male that he doesn't care if he sees something inappropriate, or the kids that can see them themselves or run up to their parents and say, "Mommy, Daddy, what is this?" So there's a bunch of ads that can impact our users in different kind of ways, and I want to touch like the highlights and the popular one that we saw in our customers app, and that actually impacted the users in different kind of ways, either by posting bad reviews, uninstalling the app, or just tweet an image that their kids saw in their app and create like a huge backlash. So this is the first one and pretty much the obvious one. We call it at SafeDK the customer support nightmare. Those are real ads from casual games, news apps. The one on the bottom left was at the kids app. And as you can see, the logo is very appealing to kids. It's a cute dinosaur. And the kid that ran to his mom after he downloaded the dinosaur app but accidentally got into a not so conservative dating app, this created a huge backlash at a specific company that it was served in. So yeah, I don't think anyone would want those ads in their apps. And we see those from all ad service providers. So this is like the obvious one, but there's a bunch more. And they're not inappropriate, but they are a direct loss of money, and they are the cause of a really bad user experience. So I want to show you real examples of a couple that we saw, but there's a list of other cases where this happens. So this is the web page not available ad. I'm sure everyone saw it on web, but you would be surprised on how popular it is on mobile as well. And the publisher who had this issue, once he went to our dashboard, he actually realized this was the fourth most served ad in his app. It was served millions of times over a very short period of time. And not only it's a bad user experience, but you can all imagine how much money got lost instead of generating it. So those impressions that you worked so hard on getting, acquiring those users, making them stick to the game, they're just going down the drain. So this is one example. And the second one is one of my favorite because it's two stones in one case with one bird. So it's not only black, but it also doesn't have an X button. So the only thing a user can do is get out of the app. So again, you put all of these efforts in making a great game, but then this ad comes up, and the user he has to close the game. He doesn't have any other choice. And like once he's out of the game, who knows when he's going to come back. So this is another example that we see a lot. And so we touched a bit about the bad ads that cause bad user experience, but also, I don't know how many of you are doing Blacklist with your ad providers, whether or not it's competitors that you don't want to bring users to because those users are never going to come back, or just because the category isn't appropriate for your target audience. But what we discovered over the past few months is that almost everyone is violating those blacklists. And we alert on almost 70% of the watch list that publishers are putting on our site. And we still haven't been able to figure out if it's on purpose or it's just because of technical issues, but we saw violations from ad networks from top to bottom. So it's across the board, and it's a real issue. So again, you're actually doing something proactive and asking your ad providers not to put specific ads, and they still end up popping in your apps. And once you have visibility, you know how big this issue is and which ad provider is responsible for it. So you don't have to guess anymore. So I think today when we talk about monetization with ads, most of the people, what they look at is how big the chunk of money in their bag is in the end of the month, and they try to just make this chunk of money bigger. But what they don't look about is that they actually have a big hole at the bottom of this bag. So it doesn't matter how much money you're going to put inside of it, you're not paying any attention for those ads that are actually a direct cause of loss of revenue. And for us, the future, and we see ourselves as a contributor to this future, is similar to the revolution that the user acquisition field went a few years ago when attribution came into place. We think that in monetization, the future is getting complete visibility and recognizing how big is this hole from each ad provider and for your specific app, and doing proactive things to actually close this hole. And then, if this is today, then this is going to be the future once you close this hole. So, for example, with the dashboard that you saw from our dashboard, you get to see exactly which creatives were served, which SDK served it, how many times, and how many times people actually clicked on it, and can get alerts whenever an ad provider actually violates your ad policy, and whenever there's a bunch of other issues like ads that crash, ads that auto-redirect the user, and the list goes on and on. But now you can actually do something about it and get the full picture of your monetization, and not just looking at the bottom line. Just look at the full picture where the bottom line is. It could be bigger if you don't have this hole at the bottom of the stack. So this is where the future is going from our point of view, and we see it already in people that started getting visibility and paying attention to this major issue. And we hope that you'll all join this revolution, and that in the next Pocket Gamer conference, we would talk about even more advanced ways on detecting those issues and closing this hole. So thank you very much. I think we have time for questions. If you want to hear more, we have a booth. We'd be happy to show you how it works live and show you a bunch of more horror stories that we have. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. Another super fast talk. So I want to ask a few things. I mean, I think you talked about ad policy violation, which is an interesting kind of problem, and do you think that's quite prevalent? But is there something about the way that we design an ad, which is an important process as well? So yes, there's a question about stepping away from the context of our game, and if hopefully we're going to be served an ad that's appropriate.
Yeah.
But do we still have some thoughts that we need? Have you had any sort of views about how impactful it is to choose the way that you set up the moment when an ad is received? Have you had a chance to look at that kind of stuff?
So we're mostly looking into the content of the ads and the technical side behind the ad. So identifying issues where the ad redirects the users, or just like a few of the example, or if the ad crashes. So it doesn't really matter where you place it. It's a matter of whether or not the ad is going to generate money for your users and also not cause you a loss of revenue. Not only, I mean, even if the ad is going to get clicked on, if like, let's say the kid that downloaded the dating app, when this user went to his parents and they tweeted about it, and it created such a major loss of money because of reputation, all the company had to deal with this issue. So I think from our side, where we stand, it's not really about where to place the ad. There's a bunch of, as I said in the beginning of the talk, there's a bunch of companies that are like ad providers that this is their specialty, knowing where to place it to make more money.
Absolutely.
And from our point of view, it's more about like making sure you're not losing money from the only source that is supposed to like bring you money.
Yeah, and, but there's also the sort of other aspects to it as well, I suspect, which is, you know, and I think, like you say, there's a question about making sure that you get the ads appropriately marked up, and obviously there's a responsibility on the person producing the ad, there's a responsibility on the game company to make sure that they're clear on what they want and use the tools that are available appropriately. Do you think people are doing that now, or is that still an issue?
So I think this is like a new it's a new space. So right now there's a bunch of other solutions that are doing like sampling solutions. We're the only one that are doing real users, real time. But we see this space evolving now, and like people already took such an advanced approach with the monetization, like where to place the ads, a bunch of like very innovative ad formats, and now they're realizing that ads are not only like generating money, but also creating a huge loss of money in some cases, and they have to take proactive action. So from our side, where we stand, we see this like huge need and interest from the industry that actually need this product, and telling us, well, we already like put resources because we have to, like the big companies, we have to develop this ourselves because it's a huge issue for us. And now that there's a solution like ours, they don't need to do it anymore. So,
but it strikes me that because a long time ago, when banner ads were still evolving, we had mechanisms, because it's one of the first things that people asked. How do I make sure I get ads that are relevant? I mean, obviously I'm talking about relevance here rather than necessarily inappropriate, but even then, there still were methods where I could whitelist, blacklist certain types of providers and certain types of content. So those tools have been around for a while, and I'm wondering why you think those tools haven't been up to the
standard.
task.
Just because I don't know why the ad providers are not able to actually comply with the ad policies that or with the blacklist that the game developers are setting. But the fact is, and we were surprised on how big this issue. We thought, like, let's put a watch list and alert whenever there's a blacklist violation. And we thought, well, that's cool because there's an issue. But we were surprised to see how wide it is. And like from our perspective, in more than 70% of the cases, the blacklist is getting violated by all sorts of ad providers. So I don't know yet what the technical issues from the ad provider's point of view, but I know that it's a big issue. And maybe it's just because up until now, publishers had no way of knowing that they're being violated unless they saw it themselves. And now there's like the ad police, so now they can actually know when it happens and how big it is. So we hope that this will change the industry to being more responsible towards like compiling with those ad policies.
Makes sense. So there's a question here. Do you want to ask a question? We'll try and repeat it back for the video.
I mean, this is obviously a huge data-driven industry. Everyone likes stats. Do you have, or are you guys building on a case study of like who the worst ad networks are? We're breaking those rules. Which SDKs are crashing the most often and stuff like that?
Yeah. So in terms of crashing and stuff, we have a database. We're not exposing it yet. It's probably the next step of doing so. And for our point of view, the next step would also be like sort of like analytics about how responsive are ad networks in solving problems fast, how much they're not gonna repeat those issues again. Because this is a huge issue we see. So the problem is getting fixed, and a week later, what do you know? It's the same all over again. So yeah, I think those are the next steps. Probably like at the next conference, I already have like a new presentation showing you like, but we like to work with SDKs. At the end, our goal is to make this industry better and help everyone make more money. So from our perspective, we would like to help those ad providers do better in this space. So I'm not sure we're gonna expose it. But this, you should take it. So our CEO and founder here, and you can drop by our booth, and she would be able to tell you if this is something that you want to do later on.
I think one of what we're talking about is a maturing of a market. Because one of the consequences when you have a market that suddenly becomes this sort of scale, if you think about the time frame where, particularly with like things like video ads and the way that opt-in video ads work in particular has been so transformational in such a relatively short period of time. I think we were doing amplifiers video ads like 4 years ago now, and we became Unity ads like 3 years ago. And if you think about the time frame, that's a really short time frame for an industry to try and evolve and adapt to such changing scale. So, do you think there might be that's a kind of fundamental question that's still there, which is the industry as a whole has had a lot of maturing to do very, very quickly, and this is just another one of those pieces that needs to be dealt with?
I think this is like the missing piece of the puzzle that, as I mentioned, don't only look at how much money is getting in, but also how much is getting out. And this is the full picture, because it doesn't matter how much. If you're making $1,000 in an hour, if 600 of those are going out because users are uninstalling, or for one bad review, it's actually 400. So it's important to pay attention to the 400 and not to the 1,000.
And it just makes me wonder, again, because I know we've got a little bit of time left, it does make me wonder whether there's this kind of wider question, which I know is important to us, which is the transparency side of things. I think the ability to communicate transparently with people, to be able to engage people, share data, and understand what's going on. I think it's actually something that's fundamentally at the heart of this. So whether it's about how much is being paid out, or whether it's about whether you're serving the right ads, that's about the relationship with your partners.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree, and I think, again, once you have the full picture, you know how to do better decisions, better data-driven decisions. Just like it went with the user acquisition side, you used to not so long ago, you used to pay for CPMs, and you wouldn't know how much you're paying for a user, and you wouldn't know the LTV of those users, and it was just big budget spends, and companies actually went bankrupt because they didn't have the full data, the full picture. So I think the industry is, again, like you said, it's maturing very, very fast, and this is the next step of doing for this industry what attribution did to user acquisition.
Makes sense.